If you are familiar with the musical Come From Away, this was a musical based on the real story of after 9/11, while 9/11 was happening and the towers were being struck and so on and so forth, the US Aviation Authority grounded all the planes in the air and refused to allow any international flights from landing in New York for obvious reasons. And in fact, it was refusing international flights from entering US airspace. So there was all these flights in the air, particularly from Europe, which weren't allowed to land. And because of the way they do their flight plan, a lot of them fly over the North Atlantic. It just turns out that Gander Airport in Newfoundland can accommodate international flights because many international flights, there's a stopover in for smaller planes and whatnot and so forth. Newfoundland has been a essential hub for North American and European traffic ever since the early days of international flight between Pan Am and transatlantic airlines. So what happened was all these flights from overseas were diverted to Gander, Newfoundland, and all the passengers had to be put up. But Gander, Newfoundland doesn't have that many hotels. So the mayor of Gander and the premier of Newfoundland appealed to the people of Gander, Newfoundland, and the people of Newfoundland. Would they be willing to open their doors? Did they have a spare bedroom to take a passenger from one of these planes and hold them up for who knows how long? Because all the flights were grounded after 9/11 for what was it, a week? And essentially you had an entire province, certainly the entire city, and then the surrounding area, Newfoundland, these people opening their doors to total strangers. And as the story goes, in that time of terrible confusion and terrible uncertainty and tragedy, friendships were formed, bonds were formed between total strangers that would last a lifetime. And it is that story that was immortalized in this musical, Come From Away. We saw this musical in Toronto, and it's a tear-jerking story. We are moved to tears every time we think about it and talk about it, because again, it's another example of terrible tragedy, of terrible suffering, inspiring and uniting humanity. In this case, the citizens of Gander and the citizens of Newfoundland and their foreign guests, many of whom didn't speak English or just barely spoke English. And let's face it, Newfoundlanders, at times, Newfoundlanders are even difficult to understand by English standards. The rest of Canada sometimes have difficulty understanding Newfoundlanders. So, because they have a very strong accent, they have a very strong Newfoundland dialect, and they have their own vocabulary. Newfoundland is a very interesting culture within Canada. It's a unique and distinct place, but it's a maritime land, Newfoundland, and a maritime land, a land that is populated by fishermen. These are people who have their entire life have been rallying and uniting, inspired by the savagery of the ocean and by the terrible, difficult life of the commercial fisherman or the offshore oil rig worker. They have been experiencing that story of man versus nature. They live that. They've been living that for hundreds of years. Generations and generations and generations of families who, yeah, when tragedy strikes, when hurricanes strike, and half the town is wiped out, the other half opens their doors and they open their hearts and they band together and they say, how can I help? What can I do? And they immediately join in, because that's what true human beings do when they see someone in need. when they see someone suffering, when they see a tragedy unfolding.
Yeah, or when they see something out of order.
This story, the lost sheep, this parable from the Bible, the lost sheep, Newfoundlanders, that's their life. Every fisherman will tell you that they've gone out onto the ocean in the middle of a hurricane or a storm looking for a boat that hadn't come in yet, or going to evacuate oil rig workers because of a hurricane that was coming, and they had to evacuate the workers from the oil rig. When you live in a maritime community like that, yes, the sea filled with its bounty, it's the source of your livelihood, it's the source of your wealth, because Newfoundland is a very wealthy province, or it should be anyway, by virtue of the oil that's offshore. Sometimes the trickle-down economics don't work properly in that province, probably because of all the corruption and everything else from the oil companies, and, well, let's not get into that. But the point is that Newfoundland is very rich in spirit, and those people are hardy and strong and resilient and fearless, because you have to be living on the shores of the North Atlantic, as Newfoundland is, a rock, an island, just like, the UK or Scotland, Ireland. You have to, when you're dealing with those elements, and on that latitude, that far north. So the adversity, the struggle, the suffering brings out the best in such communities.
Yeah.
Collectively and individually. And so the opportunity for a bodhisattva to come here and do their work for humanity, it's almost too important. It's too good. The possibility, the potential is too valuable to squander, to not take advantage of, which is why so many bodhisattva end up suffering so publicly, and many of them are martyred publicly, like so many of the saints, and it ends up being a big show of their suffering and their death, because it ends up immortalizing them in the culture and the minds and the hearts of the planet, certainly of the community and of the nation, and layers and layers and levels out, and how they faced their end, how they faced that suffering, and how they faced that persecution, how they faced their struggle, inspires humanity to, in that sense, follow their example, follow their lead, and then in another sense, rally to their side, rally to their aid, rally to their cause,